I have a sisimite story time. In case you don't know what that is, it is a beast that lives deep in the woods in Honduras. He will come out late at night looking for his next victim, which is usually a female that he will then bring back to his cave and force her to become his wife. This story was submitted by Marie. I went ahead and tagged her down below. When Marie's mom was about 10 years old, she was living in Honduras. There was this pretty woman from that same town that was up late drying some clothes right outside of her house, when out of nowhere a sisimite came and abducted her. Neighbors heard her cries but didn't think anything of it up until the morning when they realized that she was missing. Everyone decided to gather around town and look for this woman. Meanwhile, this woman was actually in this sisimite's cave where he was SAing her to the point that she was actually injured. He then laid flowers all around her. He was in love with her. He wanted her to marry him. Some of the townspeople actually heard her cries coming from one of the caves and were able to get to her in time. They ended up rushing her to the hospital and found that she had lost hearing in one of her ears and was covered in bruises. The woman describes to a T exactly what he looked like, even described his backwards feet, his hairiness. She said that he looked half human and half monkey. Years later, the woman ended up surviving for a few years. She did in fact end up passing away due to her injuries. From that day forward, no one ever came out late at night, especially in that town that was located right at the bottom of the mountain where it was more known for him to be around.
Don't get me wrong, the new Willy Wonka movie looks fine, but there's no way it's going to be as dark as the original book. We're talking dark enough to not make any cut of any of the movies. Also, I cover stuff for the Darkly Curious here, and if that's you, you might like the podcast. So in all the movies, we see the Oompa Loompas as these singing, dancing, unbothered henchmen of Willy Wonka's. But in the book, they are so much darker than that. In the book, Oompa Loompas are pygmies from Africa that Willy Wonka kidnapped and brought to his factory. Look at this passage. Once Willy Wonka realizes that they'll work for beans, he shipped them over here, every man, woman, and child in the Oompa Loompa tribe. It was easy. I smuggled them over in large packing cases with holes in them, and they all got here safely. But the book came out in 1964, and at that point, slavery had been abolished in the UK for almost 160 years. So rightfully so, people were not happy with this portrayal. But this is just a good reminder that Willy Wonka is the villain of these movies. He's a curmudgeon shut-in with Peter Pan syndrome who invites children to his factory to watch them die. And then he acts as if you're the one annoying him. Anyways, this one looks very light and fluffy and not that.
3 stories that will keep you awake tonight.
If you're ever in Texas and find teeth in a field, run. It's 1890 and Clara Crane is burying her daughter, but something wasn't right about her death. It was abrupt and happened so fast with zero reason or why. Fast forward 5 years and Claire is accused of poisoning her husband with candy laced with poison and is put into a mental asylum where she would later escape. Not long after that, kids started coming up missing and teeth started showing up in fields across Texas. While investigating, the cops found candy wrappers with a note written on them: "Come outside for more candy." The candy lady would then kill them and drink their blood and leave their teeth in a field. She noticed it in the corner and real life turned into a horror story. In 2004, there was a young babysitter who had been hired to look after some children for the evening. As the kids were peacefully sleeping upstairs, she decided to pass the time by watching some TV, waiting patiently for the parents to return home. But as she settled into the comfy couch, she noticed something odd in the corner of the room. It was a large, towering clown statue. Despite its stationary position, it gave off an eerie feeling as if it was constantly watching her, its eyes following her every move. Feeling a bit unsettled, she decided to call the children's father, hoping to make light of the situation. And after ensuring him that the kids were fine, she jokingly asked about the creepy clown statue in the living room. The line fell silent, and after what felt like eternity, the father's voice cracked through the silence, revealing that they didn't own a clown statue. Fear flooded the babysitter. She dropped the phone, dashed up the stairs, gathered the kids, and ran outside, her shaking fingers dialing 911. The police arrived swiftly, their stern faces disappearing into the house. And then they emerged with the man, the clown statue, who had been hiding under one of the kids' beds with a sharpened screwdriver. Never say her name 3 times in the mirror or you may experience a vengeful fate. Well, centuries ago in a small village, there lived a beautiful woman named Mary. She was well known in the community for her stunning good looks and charm. However, Mary's happiness was short-lived as she faced a tragic fate. One day, she fell deeply in love with a local man whom she believed was her soulmate, and they planned to marry and live happily ever after. Well, unfortunately, jealousy and envy plagued the village, and there was a woman who desired the man's affection for herself. Consumed by envy and bitterness, this woman spread rumors and lies about Mary, tarnishing her reputation and turning the village against her. Well, in the midst of the turmoil, the villagers grew increasingly hostile towards Mary, and in their anger and rage, they accused her of being a witch and blamed her for all their misfortunes. The villagers then decided to take matters into their own hands and execute Mary, leaving her to a gruesome and brutal death. Well, legend has it that Mary's spirit was unable to find peace in the afterlife. Tormented by the injustice done to her, she vowed to seek revenge on those who wronged her. And over time, the once beautiful Mary transformed into a vengeful and malevolent spirit, her face becoming disfigured and covered in blood. But according to the legend, summoning Bloody Mary through the ritual in front of the mirror is a way to invoke her spirit. Those who dare to perform the ritual may experience eerie occurrences such as seeing her ghostly figure, hearing her chilling screams, or encountering other paranormal phenomena. And that's why they say,
Folks, we got another reptilian shapeshifter caught on live TV.
Look at those teeth!
This man's evil. I don't know who he is, he's evil. Want more proof that lizard people or reptilians are real? Check out this video, link in bio.
I have an incubus story time. In case you don't know what an incubus is a D word that will SA their victim while they sleep. I just want to pre-warn you guys that there's a lot of trigger warnings in this story, 1, and 2, please be careful with the comments you leave behind, because the last time I covered this subject, TikTok didn't like the comments at all and the video actually got taken down. So the person wishes to remain anonymous. She said I can't use her first real name, but I can't tag her. So let's get to the story. So Nisha lives in Sydney, Australia. About 7 months ago at about 3 a.m. she got woken up. She could feel like someone was touching her back, at which point she became completely paralyzed. This is when the terror began. She was then SA'd by this thing. She couldn't scream for help. Mind you, her roommates were not very far. She couldn't move, she couldn't do anything. She was completely helpless. After some time, she was able to get a whisper out. That's when she started to tell this thing to leave her alone. She literally used all of her strength to get this thing to go away, and it finally did. When she came to, she found herself laying in bed, so she turned the lights on right away and called her boyfriend and told him everything that had happened. At first, she thought that maybe it had just been a horrible nightmare until she went to look and realized that she was covered in bruises.
You don't want to have nightmares? Keep scrolling, because this is Earth's Scariest Places, part 63.
This is Bob Mackey's Music World, a now nightclub in Kentucky with an extremely dark and haunted history. It's been labeled one of the most haunted places in the state of Kentucky, and if you keep watching, I'll tell you why. In the 1940s, it was known as the Latin Quarter, and it was visited frequently by lots of mobsters and crime lords. I'll get back to that, but it's important to know that before it became the French Quarter, it was a slaughterhouse, and in this slaughterhouse, very, very dark things happened. It was rumored that things like satanic rituals, torture, consumption of babies, cannibalism, and murders all happened in the basement of the slaughterhouse. One notable story is that of a woman named Joanna. When it was the French Quarter, she fell in love with a mobster. She ended up becoming pregnant with this child. When he found out, he was enraged and ended up killing her and burying her in the basement of the French Quarter. Today, it's a functioning nightclub, but the basement is completely closed off. People have reported so much paranormal activity there, including the ghost of Joanna, screaming, footsteps, and feeling like they're being watched.
still the only drift.